My name's Jason Jarrod. I'm an exercise scientist and an exercise physiologist. Every injury is unique and every fitness goal is unique. Work with me and you'll get the professional direction you need with your situation. Today I'll be talking a little bit about cognitive behavioural therapy for exercise and injury management. So this isn't just specific to people with chronic injuries or chronic pain, it also applies to people who have negative thoughts about exercise in general. So cognitive behavioural therapy is a little bit of a technical term. What it refers to is changing the way we think, essentially. Now you can apply it to different domains. It often applies to anxiety and depression and these sorts of things, and would be assigned by a counsellor. I like to use a little bit of cognitive behavioural therapy with my clients if they have what I believe might be irrational fears or irrational beliefs or just negative thoughts and beliefs about their injury or about exercise in general. That's most people. Let me just jump right into it. What is the process? So you can do this. You can do this at home, and I encourage you to. And I've done it myself. So first, let me give you a scenario. I've heard people say things like, "Oh, I don't go to gyms. It's just they're full of wankers." Like, okay, we've got an interesting viewpoint and opinion here. And I'm not saying that the gym is free of people who create difficulty in our lives or what we perceive as difficulty. But anyway, let's look at this belief. The gym's full of wankers. Well, first, we need to label when we walk into the gym, what are we thinking? What's the thought? What's the fear? What's going on in our heads? So no doubt, I try to get inside this person's head. If he were doing a journal, what would he write down? I'm going to guess. So let's see if you identify with this. Everyone's looking at me. People are judging me for being overweight. These people are looking at me because I don't have a nice body, or I don't know what I'm doing. Like, people have noticed I don't know what machine, how to use the machine. These people are judging me. You might look around and think, or he might be looking around thinking, who are these wankers? Or just, look, this guy's using 2 machines or 3 machines at once. Like, I want to use that machine. So anyway, so this is the start of the process. You write it down. Write down what you're thinking at that moment. Now, the next step after you've journaled down your anxious thoughts or your negative thoughts or these beliefs is to go back and identify the negative thought systems. So we'll need some reference material here to negative thought patterns. Negative thought patterns can include things like when we overgeneralize. For example, these people are all wankers. Well, that's an overgeneralization. There might be one or two, but they're not all wankers. In fact, if you just walk up, look, here's the thing. I'm going to go off on a tangent because that's what I do here. I should call this Tangent Works. Tangent Works Physiology. I hope it works. So look, when it comes to gym environment, for example, everyone looks a little bit aggressive, making noises, whatever, when they're exercising, and it just comes across wrong. And I can guarantee you, someone that you think is maybe looks like a bit of a jerk or like he's doing whatever, you go and have a chat and you might discover you make a new friend and they're the most lovely person ever. So part of this whole process is to undo our negative beliefs, our assumptions about someone, based on just what we're perceiving in the moment when someone's concentrating and sweating and maybe making a little bit of noise. So we've got to be careful what assumptions we make, and that's what cognitive behavioural therapy, I think, as a non-counsellor, I'm not a counsellor, but this is what I understand it's about. So we go through our journal and we identify these negative thoughts. So that was the first one I got to, overgeneralization. Don't overgeneralize. So another thing is, let's see, what else did this guy do in this scenario? So another thing would be labeling. He's calling people wankers. Well, that's just a negative label that can just go. So as soon as we name call, we're closing down. We're sort of closing down the situation in a way. So labeling has to go, whether we're labeling ourselves, oh, like I'm fat, I'm overweight, I'm disabled because I have an injury. We have to get rid of the label. The problem is, as soon as we label ourselves or we label others, we pigeonhole and we just become immune to reason and logic, really. And it becomes stuck in that thought. So we need to move away from that. So we identify labels in our journal. Another thing we can do is identify fortune telling. That's a negative thought process. Fortune telling is when in this, you might imagine this guy was thinking, oh, I'm never going to get fit. Like I'm never going to be able to come in 3 times a week. It's just, I'm not going to be able to, I can't. Or here's another example of fortune telling. That guy, he's never going to get off that machine. He's going to be on there for 20 minutes. Or, so that's fortune telling when you don't know that's what's going to happen. Like, you don't know these things. And mind reading is another one. So this guy doesn't care. He just doesn't care what my needs are. He doesn't care that anyone else wants to use the machine. Look, this guy's sweating everywhere. It's not even wiping down the equipment. He doesn't care about anyone except himself. Well, it might be true, but we've got to be careful with the mind reading that we're trying to know what someone else is thinking. We don't know it, and we often assume the worst. We always project the worst onto someone when we don't know otherwise. So here's the thing. And there's tons of other negative thought processes that I'll either put an overlay on the screen here or link to or something along those lines. So there's a dozen or 2 dozen of them, okay, of these different types of thought processes and negative thoughts. I've just gone to 3 of them. But how about, instead of this negative thought process where we try to read his mind and make assumptions and fortune tell and overgeneralize, instead of all these things, what if you wanted a machine that someone else is using? What if you just walked up to him and with a smile just said, hey, just wondering how many more sets you've got? You don't see it very often. You don't actually see that happen very often. Don't be scared of people. Just because it looks a bit scary and they look a bit intense, you might be surprised how friendly people are when you just approach them instead of glaring at them from across the room. That's a bit confrontational when you're doing your own thing and someone's just there glaring at you from across the room. We all like to be treated as humans, with a bit of respect and courtesy. So you've got to decide, when is it your problem or when is it someone else's problem? If you're the one with the fear, the judgment, the anxiety, the problem's here. It's your fear, it's your anxiety, it's your judgment. If you're like this guy that I met, and it wasn't in a gym, he was a friend, colleague of my partner's in a social setting, who said, oh, gyms are all just full of wankers. Well, there's an issue there. So you've got to decide, you've got to own your negativity before you can deal with it too. And that's why cognitive behavioral therapy is great. So we've covered journaling. We've gone through a few of the negative thought traps. What's the next step? Well, what if there is something to worry about? What if you're right? So what if your fortune telling, for example, is correct? Based on experience, you're good at predicting, I actually think this is going to happen. I don't think I'm wrong. Well, that could be true, but you could be wrong. So here's the point of cognitive behavioral therapy, I think, is that you're not stressing and worrying about things that you're either not going to do anything about or that will have no repercussions either way. So if this guy doesn't, your mind reading, and you think this guy doesn't care about your needs, how about find out if he cares about your needs? And I don't mean go up to him and say, do you care about my needs? It's kind of like, yes. Of course I care about your need. No, well, But you basically go up to him and ask how many more sets you got. But you've got to be nice about it. Don't be a jerk. And I labelled, but just assume they're a nice person. Just make that assumption. And they'll probably be nice back to you. You'll just get back usually you'll get back the energy you put out. Usually, not always, but you might surprise yourself. So address your own negativity, your own assumptions, your own anxiety. So that's what my point was. So if you're not going to do anything about it, there's no point thinking about it or stressing about it or worrying about it. You've either got to do something. So this is where you categorize your negative thought traps and from your journal. So you've either got to, are you going to act on it? Is there a valid thing that you've got to act on? So sometimes our fortune telling is like, oh, like this or that might happen, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you want to mitigate the risk of something that could actually happen, write down a task for tomorrow. Then it's written down, you'll do it tomorrow and you'll do the task to mitigate the risk. If you're not going to do something about it, what's the point of worrying about it? It's either going to happen regardless or you do something. So we're really getting into psychology, and these are coping mechanisms. So there's a chart. I'm going to put a chart on screen here that I recall from uni about different pathways. So there's a pathway for coping, and there's another pathway for, I believe, stress and anxiety from memory. So yes, I'm going to dig that up. I'm going to put that on the screen. Hopefully, if I've done that, that's on the screen right now. If it's not, you're still just looking at my face, staring at the screen. So anyway, we've covered diarization in the cognitive behavioral therapy. We've covered identifying the negative thought traps, and we've covered categorizing. Is there something you're going to do about the thought if there's a legitimate thing there, or is there not something you're going to do? This is all you need to do, really. Except there's one more thing you can do if you're struggling to put it out of your mind. You can allocate something called worry time. Worry time is something I discovered about when I was getting counselling. I've had anxieties myself. I've gone through all of this. So I just don't even think I'd bother talking about things I hadn't experienced myself in life, really. So I can talk as a bit of an, from a position of personal experience as well, which I think is important. But worry time's good. Worry time sounds weird and counterproductive, but it works. I experienced it. It's just hard to stick with it because it isn't fun, but it works. It's like, it's, I don't know, like brushing teeth. You got to do it. So not for 20, 30 minutes though. Don't brush teeth for that long. So worry time is essentially you set aside 20 or 30 minutes a couple times a week and you do nothing but worry. I know, it's weird, isn't it? So you literally just sit there and worry about those things that you plan to worry about. Now, what I found from this is that you will notice the effect only after you've done it after about a week. Because when you start to worry now, so if you take those thoughts out of your journal or your negative thought processes and you're still worrying about them, you know it's a negative thought process and it's not technically logical as such, but you can't put it out, put it in worry time. So tomorrow, 30 minutes, you can have worry time. This will be one of your worry subjects, where that's when you're going to sit down and worry about it. Not now, not the day after, not the rest of the week. You've got time in worry time. Now, it works because whenever now you can start to identify that you're worrying, that you're just falling into this spiral down that leads into anxiety and even depression. You're just worrying. You're not acting on the worry. You're not creating an action plan. You're not dealing with it productively. You're just worrying, and we all do it. But once you've done worry time a couple times, what you'll notice is whether your worries wake you up from sleep or it's during the day when you should be relaxing, what you'll notice is eventually you'll be able to say to yourself, oh, I know that's a negative thought trap. I'll save it for worry time. And you can let it go easier because you know there's a time to worry about that. You're not dismissing the thought. It's a little bit like meditation. You watch the river flow by. You're not dismissing it. You acknowledge it. I acknowledge that worry, that stress, that anxiety. I'll put you in worry time for tomorrow and we'll worry then. You've got to be gentle with yourself. You can't be too strict. This is about, okay, thank you for letting me know that you exist, little worry, big worry. So thank you so much. We'll worry about that tomorrow. Just put him there. And if he tries to come back like a needy little cat, hey, what are you doing? Back over there. There you go. That's okay. Just stay over there. Gently. It's always, we've got to treat ourselves with gentle kindness. And that's the way you've got to think through this whole cognitive behavioral therapy process as well. And I swear it works, guys. It's great. I've done it myself, and I catch myself when I still occasionally go back to the journal if I notice, oh, I'm doing something, what I'm worrying, but why am I, okay, what's the anxiety? There must have been a negative thought. What's the negative thought? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, is there something I actually need to do? Maybe there is a task here. Oh, there's a task, but also there's unnecessary worry. Okay, worry time tomorrow. Also task list tomorrow for something to do. See? You can do this with exercise. It will help resolve your negative emotions, your anxieties. It will probably make you more productive. And I'm going to tell a bit more of a personal story as well. What I notice is that when I dealt with my anxieties and my worries, it frees you up. It just frees up your energy. You just become more open to the world around you. You get into the flow easier. You'll be more creative. You'll have more energy overall. We choose where we allocate our energy, and that includes the things that we worry about. If you have a lot to worry about and you have a lot of anxieties and you don't have a process in place to deal with it, how would that manifest? You might wake up a lot in the middle of the night. You may have clinically diagnosed anxiety and or depression. There may be other factors in your life that are out of balance. This process of Grahan works. Not saying it works for everyone. Not saying it'll be necessarily appropriate for you, but give it a shot. Read a little bit about it, look it up, and please be sure to comment below. Didn't see that coming, did you? See, I'm getting really tricky. Comment below if you found the video interesting, which you did, and ask me questions. Let's get the chat happening. Have you ever tried cognitive behavioral therapy? How do you find it? How do you use it? Comment here. Hit subscribe somewhere here around the video. Hit subscribe, follow my videos, and stay tuned for more amazing content.